Okay, we're continuing with the Holy Grail of Wisdom quotes in alphabetical order. The first guy is Simon Sinek. He's a business coach and an author. He says it's better to go slowly in the right direction than to go speeding off in the wrong direction. If you sell what you do, you're a vendor. If you sell why you do it, you're a brand. The leaders who get the most out of people are the leaders who care the most about their people. A team is not a group of people that work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. Working hard for something you don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. I'd actually go one step further. I'd say working hard for something we don't care about, that's pretty much easy. That's like an annoyance. Working hard for something you don't really care about and it's difficult, that's stress. Okay, and then working hard on something you like, that's fun. But the problem with this equation is that most of what we like doing, no one will pay us for it. I love this nutrition stuff. Nobody will give me 10 cents for it, okay? I love writing books. Nobody, get next to nothing. Once you get all said and done, it's essentially nothing, okay? But you do clinical medicine, you get paid, okay? Clinical medicine, though, you're sort of working for the machine. The doctor's like a cog in this assembly line. Great leaders are willing to sacrifice the numbers to save people. Poor leaders sacrifice the people to save the numbers. Okay, good stuff. Isaac Bashevis Singer, novelist, he says, it seems that the analysis of character is the highest human entertainment. Yeah, people like talking about other people, trying to understand them, and that's because it's valuable to our survival to be able to understand other people, to our health and well-being. Literature is the memory of humanity. Yeah. That's a sign of a real culture. You have literature, Most cultures through history have not had literature. Nobody was writing a novel, okay, You start getting, sophisticated writing. The ancient Greeks, the Romans, okay. The Celts didn't write anything, okay. Neither did these other primitive populations, the Egyptians and all these other ones. Isaac Singer, he says, we have to believe in free will. We have no choice. Okay, that's a good one. Grant Singleton, the writer, he said, most people are conformists. They follow. They never create. The nonconformist alone is a creative person. Yeah, that's the funny thing about it. In order to create anything, you have to be nonconformist. But if you're nonconformist, then people start getting pissed off at you. So the bottom line is if you want to be creative, you have to accept that people are going to be pissed off at you. B.F. Skinner, he lived from 1904 to 1990, the big founder of the school of psychology called behavioralism. He wrote a famous book, Verbal Behavior, in 1957, and then Noam Chomsky refuted it. All right. Okay, Chomsky said the speed at which humans learn language and the very little stimulus they get in comparison, calling that a poverty of stimulus, suggests that we have an innate ability to learn language, like we have legs to walk on, and he called it a universal grammar. Okay. Now that's disputed by some people, like Tom Wolfe, the writer, claims that there's a people called the Paraha that do not follow the rules of universal grammar. Okay, but it's obvious that humans are good at language and that we have that skill and no one else does, no other animal does. The behaviorists tended to believe that their way of understanding psychology was superior to all the other schools because they're like, we can get results. We can train animals and people to do what we want them to do. Therefore, our psychology is more real because it gets real world results. If you talk to somebody like Jordan Peterson, he'll tell you the most real thing in all of psychology is IQ testing. Okay, there's a lot of people who will agree with that about psychology. If you ask me about psychology, I would say that, they did some good experiments, like the Milgram experiment and the Zimbardo experiment, just showing how bad people behave. So sadly, that is a true thing, that people, if they have an authority that tells them to do bad stuff, they will do it. And if you read history and war and all that stuff, you'll see tons of that. But most of psychology is kind of a joke. They don't know the difference between a man and a woman, how they're going to give relationship advice. They just do whatever they're told. They just say whatever they're told to say. They change with the wind. They have no moral foundation. All right. Well, anyways, behaviorists are trying to control behavior. And they didn't care about the animal's mind. They just wanted to get it to do stuff. Okay, so let's see. One of the big criticisms of behaviorism is people say that humans are more complicated than rats and pigeons. To some extent, Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, would say, well, humans really aren't. They just have a will. They basically want food, safety, and sex, for reproduction, and that's about all there is to them. He said they're not that much different from animals, and he said the rare ones are the ones who think and contemplate the world and life and all this other stuff. He says, and their higher intelligence usually just ends up making them sad because they're disliked for it. Anyways, I think we can be more hopeful than that. B.F. Skinner used to put pigeons into a Skinner box, and then he would train them with rewards and punishments, okay? Like shocks. The rewards would be food, like seeds for, let's say, the pigeons. Seed shock, seed shock. And I remember reading this stuff and thinking, what a waste of time. This has got nothing to do with my life. I thought, this is ridiculous. Okay, then I realized the modern home was a Skinner box. And my wife was a trainer, and I was a dumb animal. Nagging sex to control me. I had come to the conclusion that a woman is like a machine designed by God to empty a man's wallet. It's like my wife. It's like, this heat-seeking missile to empty my wallet. She would think all day of a strategy to empty it. She was pretty good at that. Okay, they say that, the male wallet's like a vagina. The male vagina, the woman loves to penetrate it. More and more and more, deeper. Okay, to say that humans are entirely controlled by the environment is a denial of free will. Behaviorism ignores the fact that some humans actually enjoy thinking and want to learn ways to overcome their problems. So positive reinforcement is something that increases the behavior. Negative reinforcement decreases the behavior. Okay, programmed learning on a computer is a little bit like learning with a Skinner box. B.F. Skinner says, when you run into something interesting, drop everything and study it. I'd agree with that. Like if I'm preparing a book on one thing, and all of a sudden I come across some good paintings, I'll study that artist because I'm always interested in seeing good paintings. I love good paintings. Or, I see a good quote. I'll look up the quotes of that writer. B.F. Skinner, no one asks how to motivate a baby. A baby naturally explores everything it can get at, and this tendency does not die out. It is wiped out. Yeah, the public schools are designed to destroy curiosity, to teach simply obedience to authority. And B.F. Skinner says, that's all teaching is, arranging contingencies which bring about changes in behavior. Well, not all teaching is changes in behavior, it's changes in understanding. Sometimes it don't entail any behavior, but in the future they'll entail a different interpretation of other people in the world. Behavior is shaped and maintained by its consequences. The way that positive reinforcement is carried out is more important than the amount. So what he'll recommend is intermittent reinforcement, meaning that if you only get rewarded sometimes, like with a slot machine, gambling in Las Vegas, that makes you more enthusiastic to continue than if you were rewarded, let's say, every 30 tries or something. He says, we admire people to the extent that we cannot explain what they do, and the word admire means to marvel at. The real question is not whether machines think, but whether men do. The question is this: are we to be controlled by accidents, by tyrants, or by ourselves in an effective cultural design? By careful cultural design, we can control not the final behavior, but the inclination to behave, the motives, the desires, the wishes. We increase the feeling of freedom. Your education is what survives when what was learned in the class has been forgotten. B.F. Skinner, we shouldn't teach great books. We should teach a love of reading. Knowing the contents of a few works of literature is a trivial achievement. Being inclined to go on reading is a great achievement. And there's some truth in that, is that one of the most valuable things you could teach a kid is to like reading, because then they'll keep on educating themselves. People who keep reading, they keep on developing the vocabulary and getting smarter and more sophisticated. Average person never reads, and they sort of plateau, and they really don't go anywhere with their intellect. I know some really smart people. They read and they talk about their books, whereas the vast majority of people, including the vast majority of doctors, they don't read. Okay, next we just got a quote by Michael Skinner, the biologist. He said that aging is being slowly poisoned. There's actually a lot of truth in that, all them different mitochondria inhibitors, gut toxins. If your work is not controversial, then it is not significant. Okay, that's it for quotes today. Hope you found that helpful.